Hello, my name is John Deedy, professor of political science at the community colleges of Baltimore County and local political media analyst. Welcome to the Maryland State Politics and Government podcast on Substack. Today, I am talking with Marsha Briley Savage, who is a candidate for the 8th District delegate for the Maryland House of Delegates in Annapolis. Good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, John.
You're welcome. My first question is, why are you running?
I am running because, like everyone else, I am tired of politics as usual. I am a almost a 30-year veteran of public serving and public service. I've worked for over 21 years in the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. I now work in Anne Arundel County Public Government as the reentry coordinator, and I work for other elected officials, and I am tired of politics as usual. Fighting from the margins. So I am ready to put my hat in the ring and work at a different vantage point. I feel like that I need to be closer to the table. I'm in the rooms, but I need to be at the table, helping with the policy development.
The table could be very important because that if you have a seat at the table, people listen a little better than if you're outside the room.
That's true.
What do you think is the number one issue for people in the 8th district?
I believe, and this is from talking to my neighbors and my family, as you know, I believe the budget. It's a lot of things is around evolves around money. It revolves around kitchen table. The BG, the energy crisis is money. The budget, it goes back. And services, people getting services. We know that Baltimore County, the average resident is 45 years old and up. We're it's an aging population here, and it's the kitchen table issues. People and their families, working families. Folks are like me. You've raised your children. They're adults, so you have grandchildren coming. But then the flip piece is that you're taking care of your parents. You have aging parents. So we're called AARP, I believe, call us like the sandwich generation. That a lot of us are here. I've met a lot of folks that are like me. So those are issues in balancing that. Helping our aging parents navigate Medicare. I'm married to a retired combat disabled military vet. He's also a federal police officer in DC. So, navigating that, public safety, that's also a big issue. People want to be safe going to the market and their children going to school and things like that. So, and we have, I feel like we have lost our way. I feel like we have swung so far to the left, we've swung so far to the right, and and we're arguing, and people are just, we've gotten so political that we've taken people out of the process. So I'm here to try to bring some normalcy and some understanding back to bring the voices back, elevate our
Especially
voices.
during this time would be a change of pace.
Yes. Yes.
My
Yes.
one question I want to ask you talked about the budget. Let's say that
Yeah.
Governor Moore called you up and said, Marsha, here's a red pen. What would you add to the budget? Or what would you take away from the budget? What do you think is kind of maybe a little bit too much fluff? And what do you think where there needs to be more done?
That is an interesting question. You know what? And this is because I've worked in state in state agencies. So I understand. We need to just, it is very basic. There is so much waste going on within our state agencies. Our legislators are just taking these broad strokes, looking at things, very abstract, from a very abstract way, when there are just some, I do not believe that they are really taking a look at what these state agencies are doing. Who is out on leave? You have employees that have been out on leave. They are not planning on coming back to work. They probably want to retire. They're out, or they need to be medically retired. You have people, where's the overtime? What are people doing? You have positions that are overlapping, and positions that haven't been filled since God, probably since Glendenning been governor, you know. These positions, you see all these vacant positions sitting out on the website. So I would really want to look at the bare bones, and really at how our state government is really working. What positions are needed, what positions are not, what is the overlap, and then all these these audit reports that are, automatically they're appearing. We didn't just get here yesterday. you know there are problems, and we need to address them. We don't need to keep having hearing after hearing. We know what the problems are. And if things aren't working, we need to deal with it. We either need to get rid of it, we need to make changes. And that is where the cost is. That is where we are. And then it's another thing. And I feel like this is a big issue. We have people, and no one wants to talk about it. The Maryland Commission on Civil Rights have hundreds of cases sitting there of workers who have filed cases, and there are cases sitting there that would literally bankrupt our state. And we are paying out, and we need to be looking at, why are we getting sued? Why are these employees, why are our state agencies getting sued? That is also where we need to be looking at cost savings. So there are very blatant places that we can look and cut without cutting DDA, without cutting services to vulnerable populations, without, doing those things.
One of the things that has been talked a lot about recently is having a state office of inspector general in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Montgomery County, Howard County. They have those offices. The voters love them. Do you think there should be a state agency specifically as a state office of inspector general to kind of root out some of these problems and get some of the fiscal house in order?
Absolutely. And I have been very outspoken on that. I have been a strong supporter of here in Baltimore County. I was one of the first individuals that was very supportive of Izzy Patoka's recommendation for the inspectors general's oversight, and all the advocacy work that he has been doing in Baltimore County around the inspector general's office. Absolutely. I would support that type of legislation. I will push for that, and that independent oversight. I also was a strong advocate for the ombudsman, for the independent oversight of our correctional system, state correctional system here. So I am a huge advocate of independent oversight and regulation of watching our taxpayer, regulation of our taxpayer funded activities in the state.
Along those lines, I've talked to a lot of county officials in Baltimore County, legislators, county council members, etc. The big fear they have is the blueprint. Yeah, we'll get through this year, but down the road, the financial obligations of the blueprint frighten a lot of people. What would you do regarding the blueprint? Do you think it should be full speed ahead? Do you think they should maybe pause things? How would you deal with an issue like that?
Again, we need to go, we need to, again, I wouldn't be full speed ahead. Absolutely not. We need to come back. We need to put the brakes on some things. We need to come back and revisit some things. I'm a child of the 70s and the 80s. In the school systems, things were a lot simpler. I would draw on that knowledge and have those kind of conversations. We need to really understand, why are we not evaluating? I'm also an analytical person. we need to understand what is working and what is not working. And if something is not working, we need to stop doing it. We do not need to hire anyone to tell us. We do not need, thunder to come down from heaven to tell us what to, if something is not working, it's not working. So when we're looking at the blueprint, I'm not a big fan of over legislating things, and I feel like that is one example of over legislating, certain things when it comes to education, and things like that. But I would want us to come back and take a look and have conversations with the teachers, have conversation with the parents, and again, look at what has worked in the past and revisit those things, and then the things that doesn't work, then we need to stop doing those things.
My next question centers on something a lot of people have talked to me about and expressed concern about. It's energy. It's the BG&E bill. People are opening up and saying, oh my God, I've been cutting back and it's gone up like crazy. When it comes to energy policy, what would you like to see done? Would you like to see an expansion of nuclear, more natural gas? Would you like to see solar, wind, whatever? Where are you as far as some sort of energy policy that try to get things under control and help working families?
So and this is my opinion, but I want to be, when you go into public office, it's the will of the people. I am under the belief that people should have access to whatever form of energy that is suitable and appropriate for them. To that point, we did not get here yesterday. This energy crisis that we are in came from, the multi-year rate plan experiment and the regulatory, things that they did a few years ago. And this, the shell game that happened in Annapolis. But I believe that we should explore with keeping, our being prudent and keeping in mind about conservation and being environmentally safe and educated on being environmentally prudent. We should explore all sources of energy. I am an advocate of all sources of energy. I'm not leaning toward, because there are pros and cons to all different sources of energy, and I just believe that we should explore. Because if the wind's not blowing, wind not going to work. If the sun's not shining, solar's not going to work. So. I just really, I don't lean. I know it probably sound like I'm in the middle, because I am. I truly am. I believe that wherever the people can have whatever they need, they should have access to that source of energy. And we, as policy people, we should be trying to look for avenues to make sure that can happen without us running a power cord to another state.
Makes sense. Next question I'll ask, it relates to something a little bit different. People who are in politics always have North Stars, political leaders from the past or present they admire. Are there any particular people you could think of right away that you look at as someone that you've admired in the past, or admire currently, someone that you look at and have a great deal of respect for?
Someone who I don't hear a lot about her is Shirley Chisholm. I admire her. And someone who is living is, of course, our new Speaker of the House, Jocelyn Pina Melnick. But what I admire most about Shirley Chisholm is her unbought, unbossed mantra, because that is me. I am a grassroots candidate. I am not looking, I raise enough money to get what I need done for my campaign. I'm not looking to participate in any party politics. Yes, I'm running as a Democrat, but I am running for the people. I am running to be the voice of the people that will put me in office. I am not running to be anyone's puppet. I want to ensure that and I'm not running to be someone's voice. I am running to elevate, to amplify, the voices of the people of my community, of the seniors, of the veterans, our BFW, our business owners, that are struggling, our minority and small business owners, and our seniors and single parents, and our students and community school students and homeless. And it's very troubling to me, to see that all these folks are being ignored, and so that is why that's why I look at Shirley Chisholm. And it's not that I look at the biopic movies and things like that. They're good, but I've read her books. I look at the documentaries. I study her journey, and that's who I admire. That's who I admire, and that's who I pattern my platform behind. Shirley Chisholm.
My next question deals with an issue that's been very controversial, and it's the issue of redistricting. How do you feel
Okay.
about that? Should they do this redistricting plan that the governor put out? The House did vote for it. The Senate is basically putting it not just down only on the back burner, they're taking it totally off the stove. So what are your views regarding the whole redistricting process?
My feelings about redistricting. Um, I'm just going to be totally transparent. I I understand the posture of why folks want to do it, but I'm not interested in Maryland us wasting money that we don't have. We have other issues that we can be dealing with in Maryland than to be worrying about redistricting in order just to cut out one Republican in our state. I feel like, I at this moment I feel like we have bigger fish to fry than that. I don't necessarily, agree with it needs to be a thing, right now. But if it's dead on arrival anyway. But if they wanted it on the ballot for the people to decide, I am definitely a proponent of allowing, voters to decide on what they want. But when it comes to redistricting, I don't think but as far as the legislator and all that hoopla that was around it, I feel like our time could have been better spent on trying to get our fees down, trying to find out how we can stop our seniors from eating pet food, and trying to, and trying to pay their BGE bills and pay for their car fees and, registration fees and things like that.
This question centers on education in this sense.
Okay.
When the governor came into office in his second year, he cut funding for community colleges. There's a thing called the CADE formula, which is basically how community colleges get a certain percentage of state finances, etc. Do you feel that for community colleges, should their funding be increased? Should it stay where it is? Do you think they should absorb at a decrease? How do you feel about the role of community colleges, CCBC, as far as in the community and the state of Maryland?
I am a strong supporter of community college because I am a product of community college. I did 2 years of community college, and I was in the bridge program with Morgan State University. As a single mom and working full time, that was that was a lifesaver for me. And our community colleges are they're a backbone. They're a backbone to our communities. For those individuals who can't go to our bigger universities or can't afford it. The community college that they provide not just you know a pathway to if you want to go to a 4-year university. They also provide vocational training and certifications, and other non-credit courses and things like that. They have partnerships with local um, businesses and state agencies and things like that. I do not believe any funding should be cut to community colleges. I think that community colleges should there should be more emphasis placed on community colleges. I think they also, again, even this interview, with you and things like that, they're involved in civic engagement. They're very involved. I am a strong supporter of community college, and I would fight for funding to make sure that funding is not cut for community colleges in the state of Maryland.
My final question deals with something very controversial locally and nationally. It's that three-letter word, ICE. And my question is, how do you feel about the legislation that's been passed and signed regarding these 287 agreements? Also, do you believe that basically people who are ICE officers should be allowed to have face coverings?
So, how I feel about ICE, as a person with a law enforcement background, I do believe that everyone should abide by the law of the land. That's it. That's it, and that's all when it comes to that. When it comes and then also with my correctional background, I actually had to do a little research because I was under the impression that I thought that we, as just the United States of America, if anyone that was not a citizen, that committed a crime, that the deportation mechanism was already in place, that happens if they was arrested and convicted here in the United States. So all I can say to that is that I support the law of the land. When it comes to face coverings, it's funny that you asked that question, because I have been grappling with that when the legislation, when he was talking about this legislation over the past few days. I was grappling with that because being that my husband is he's not an ICE agent, but he is a police officer, a federal police officer. I struggle. I believe that the legislation, I support the legislation with some very strict limitations around it, because police officers move between units. And if someone is in an undercover, working an undercover unit, if they move from an undercover unit and move to a unit that's not undercover, I just want to ensure that their identity is protected, and that the law enforcement officer, we have some good people, everyone is not bad, that's in law enforcement, that they are protected, that our law enforcement people are protected. But I don't support, ICE face coverings, bandits grabbing children, going into churches, and covering their faces to keep, themselves from being identified for when they do things that are unlawful. So I have to be honest, John. I am cautiously supportive of it, as long as we have some very definitive language around the exceptions and the exceptions around the face coverings. And that is I want to ensure that also that the law enforcement, that the ICE agents, that because the agency does exist, and there are some people I know people that have worked there for years, that undercover people, their identity are protected, that works in undercover positions and things like that, if that makes any sense.
Let me ask this part in a different way, but just a kind of a final question, since I'd kind of forgotten about this point. Do you think they should be required to wear body cameras?
Yes, yes. Body cameras, yes, because then you have the tape, you have the evidence, you know what happened in real time.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to thank you again for taking the time to do this interview, and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.